very good morning to all of you. I am Dr. Rishi Parashar, a senior consultant dermatologist from Delhi's Gangaram Hospital. Today we are embarking on a novel venture. We all know about seminar. Seminar is a word comes from Greek which means seed plot, something like how Socrates used to talk to his students. Then came the webinar because of the COVID pandemic, and we all know that all study and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That is why we have embarked upon this novel venture wherein there will be education as well as enjoyment all together on the road. This is the Rodinar. This is perhaps the first initiative, and I thank the organizers for having such a novel concept. I hope it will not be boring for all of you when we are discussing hardcore dermatology interspersed with the sights and sounds of New Delhi. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone from Delhi's iconic Connaught Place. I am waiting for my great friend, my friend from last 25 years, Dr. Anil Ganju, whom you all know. He is a very well-known dermatologist and a senior guy in Delhi. A great singer, great traveler, great photographer, and name anything, great singer, name any talent, and he is good at it. He is our pride and joy of Delhi, and I am going to be welcoming him. How nice it is to meet after such a long time with COVID getting, the cloud of COVID getting behind us.
It's really wonderful. You know, CP is something which has been really iconic, and I have loved it always.
What about you, Dr. Girdhar?
We used to come every Sunday for Rahagiri here since 2014, and then COVID took over and the opportunity lost. It's very nice to be together again.
This is Dr. Anil Ganju, my friend, philosopher and guide, Dr. Mukesh, my elder brother in every which way, a very well-known figure in Delhi, and is very well known in this subject. He's given countless number of talks. Dr. Anil, anyway, is a polymath. He's good in everything that he touches. Everything he touches turns to gold, whether it is singing, whether it is photography, acting, dermatology, of course. And today I will be using their insights into atopic dermatitis. That would be the topic of our Rodinar today. And what we'll be trying to do is that along with the beauty of Delhi, it is luckily a Sunday morning, it is raining, so we are having Delhi as we used to have it in early 70s. No traffic, no pollution, and Connaught Place all for all of us. So we'll be talking about atopic dermatitis. So let us not waste time and start off. What comes to your mind the moment you see an atopic dermatitis patient? How do you define it, doctor? Dr. Anil.
Well, atopic dermatitis is something really, disturbing to not only the patient but also to the whole family, because it's a young child who usually starts with atopic dermatitis, and then as he grows, the disease grows with the child. Many a time it does become less severe with growing age, but it's really difficult. These people have constant itching, have rashes on their skin. They get itching because of exposure to so many environmental conditions. So they are in a real bad state. So it's very important that we understand this disease properly and give some solace to these patients and give them treatment so that they can come out of this problem.
Perfect, perfect. It's almost as if I'm reading a textbook of Rook. Dr. Mukesh, is it the itch that rashes or the rash that itches?
Yeah. So these patients are all the time itchy, and that itch is actually producing the rash. Now, the characteristic rash of atopic dermatitis.
Tell us about the infantile phase, childhood phase, and adult phase. How does it behave?
That's right. So the rash would be, coming when the infantile phase it comes. you have a dry skin, and then on the extensors, especially on the
What are
you
the
know
extensors?
extensors of the legs, on the arms, you start having and the face, especially the face, you start having those red cheeks. Parents sometimes come to us with just red cheeks, and you realize that the patient has started having atopic dermatitis. So it starts that way in the early infancy. Then the localization starts changing, and as the child grows, it starts coming more on the flexural areas. Initially, it is more crusty. It is more, having more of exudate. It's more weeping kind of thing. Over a period of time, it starts becoming more drier, but the skin starts thickening and darkening. It starts localizing more in the flexures, like in the front of the arms, behind the knees, on the neck, all these areas. And we see many patients who have dark patches only, itchy dark patches. You don't see any frank eczema.
Lichenification.
Lichenification. We don't see any frank eczema. So this is how it evolves. And it is so much important to diagnose and pick the disease early and treat intensively, so the patient doesn't end up with the more severe form of the disease.
When a child is born, after how much time does atopic dermatitis generally come, if it comes?
Usually, the infantile phase will come up at around 4 to 6 months of age. So, if you have something happening immediately after birth, you may confuse it with something like infantile seborrheic dermatitis. But the atopic, eczema sets up usually after about 4 to 6 months, and then goes on.
Do you think, Dr. Girdhar, they grow up and their chances of getting asthma is more?
Yes, yeah. So that's the role of managing atopic dermatitis well in the early childhood.
What is
It
the
is
triad
believed-
of atopic dermatitis?
Yeah, so you have atopic dermatitis, you may end up with the respiratory allergy in the form of asthma, and then you may end up with the rhinitis. So this is how the atopic dermatitis can be important, in a way that if we manage atopic dermatitis well early enough, and we give the barrier repair function well, we give the moisturizer emollients properly, the child is not exposed to that much of allergen from the skin, the so much of infective agents and the other allergic substances going through the skin, the chances of the child developing asthma and allergic rhinitis later in the life becomes lesser and lesser. So it becomes so much important that we manage our patients very well for atopic dermatitis. We treat them early, we pick them early, and we treat them intensively, and counsel our patients' parents very well, so that the child doesn't end up with more problems.
We all agree on that. What are the other infections that we see much more often in an atopic child than we see in a normal child? Do we see it more in these children?
Sure, absolutely. Our patients get a lot of staphylococcal infections, the bacterial infections. And it's a known thing that if the child gets another infection, like a viral infection, like herpes simplex infection, that infection is likely to become much more florid in an atopic child, like we call as eczema herpeticum. So all the infections in the atopic child are likely to become more florid, they spread faster, and they need to be managed well. In fact, it is believed that there is a lot of colonization on the skin of Staph aureus, which perpetuates, which aggravates atopic dermatitis. And from time to time, we have to assess if the patient is having any staphylococcal colonization. We need to treat that, and even the use of topical preparations to manage the inflammation also brings down the bacterial load. It's not always that antibiotics have to be used. It is the control of eczema which brings down the infection. So again, the same thing. If we control eczema very well, we will be getting rid of the infections also which are going to develop.
Dr. Anil, do you want to add something to it?
I wanted to send a very important message that the pivotal problem here is a barrier defect. You see, these children basically have a barrier, skin barrier, which is not as resilient as in normal children. So because of that, there is an easy accessibility of the microbes, of the allergens into the skin. They can easily penetrate into the skin because the barrier is deficient. Barrier doesn't have a good stratum corneum health. There is lack of ceramides in the skin. There is lack of natural moisturizing factors because there are filaggrin mutations happening. So they have a easily permeable barrier. So because of this easy permeability, there is easy entrance of microbes. There is easy entrance of allergens, which sets up infections and allergies both. So these children basically are their skin is open to infections and allergens. So that's what where the problem is. Atopic dermatitis, basically management is not just medication. There's so many things.
Holistic.
It's a holistic approach that you have to take. First, you have to sensitize the parents and tell them about the disease and explain fully how they can take care of their children. One very important and pivotal is the good moisturization of the skin. As I told you, that the barrier is defective, so you need to supplement the barrier. You need to keep the barrier in a good shape and good resilient and supple shape. You have to hydrate it well, and then, as you said, because the environment has a huge role to play, we do tell them about so many things. One is good application of moisturizers. Always moisturize the skin. Prevent exposure to pollution. Prevent exposure to harsh substances like soaps, antiseptics, etc. Prevent
Should
insecticides.
we rub the skin after taking bath or dab it?
Not at all. Dab it, because
Right.
this is a part of the emoliation of the atopic skin. Because the most important is hydration. We want to keep the hydration within the skin. So after the bath, if we pat dry and then apply an emollient over it, we are going to trap the moisture there and then. But having said that, now we have so many emollients available which do not really depend on the water there, but that adds. So you should pat dry and apply the moisturizer. I think
Dr.
Mukesh will
Mukesh,
take it from
what
there.
kind of clothes should
See, yeah.
atopic wear?
So
What kind of clothes do you tell
besides
them?
clothing, see, we were talking about the bathing and shower. So we should tell the patient very clearly it should not be hot water shower. It should be tepid water, and it should be a short bath, 3 to 5 minutes, not more than that.
Should we even skip bath?
No, skipping bath will not help because we want the skin to be moist when we apply the moisturizer. So when we are applying moisturizer and the skin is not moist, the moisturizer or the emollient is not going to hold your water into the skin. So we need the water to be there on the skin. So a short bath, and immediately after bath, after wiping of the body, within 2 to 3 minutes, the moisturizer should be there on the entire body. So that's the dictum actually, so that the skin doesn't lose its moisture before the moisturizer is applied. The clothings and all, and you were talking of the foods and all. Clothings wise, cotton is the best anyway, because that is the most skin friendly fiber, or you can have pure silk also, that is also skin friendly fiber. Otherwise, synthetics to be avoided. Woolens are the most irritant, so I tell all my patients to avoid direct contact of woolen with the skin. So you can put on a
Is it
cotton.
allergy to wool or intolerance to wool?
Intolerance actually. So
Intolerance.
that irritates actually. In the diet also, in the early part of life, foods are important. Some foods like nuts, milk, egg, seafood, these things are important.
When you see a child, for example, you see the eyes, having more wrinkles than normal. You have the palms which have many more lines. Any such thing that you tell the parents, this is to be expected?
Yeah, it is. You see,
Even thickened palms and soles may also be one of the features,
and Danny Morgan folds, as we call them,
Right.
around the eyes,
Right.
the wrinkling, puffiness on the eyes. That points to the possibility of the child having the disease and maybe having more severe disease.
More severe
Even
diseases.
Even if the patient does not have atopy at that time, he may go on to
Many a
develop.
times you pick up the disease just by a little eczematous dermatitis under the ear there. So that makes you suspect atopic dermatitis. So there are so many things. But the important point, as Anil mentioned in all these patients, is hydration. Hydration, hydration, hydration.
One more thing that happens as they grow out, as we were talking about growing out, hand eczemas become more common in these. So if you see a hand eczema for the first time, for example, in an adult, you go back to the history and then you'll realize that this probably
Weeping
was
eczema,
an atopic child who
atopic.
has grown out of atopy and come in as hand eczema. So I feel all these eczemas basically are a tendency since birth, and they probably are all atopics.
Anil, this is such a beautiful place. Dr. Girdhar, I'm coming here after years, and every one of you should know what Lodi Garden is all about. It is one of the largest public parks in India, about 90 acres. It stands here. Here is Khan Market, probably the most expensive piece of uh, market as far as the rents and the shops are concerned.
I think the greenery and the cleanliness around, I think, brings us to our
Main
topic.
topic.
Yes, the importance of cleanliness, the importance of awareness in our disease called atopic dermatitis. So let's move on. Rishi, we did discuss the importance of awareness, etc. Let's move on to the pathogenesis of this difficult disease. Uh, what do you think happens? How do the patients develop this kind of inflammation?
It is basically interplay between the genetics, the environmental factors, and various other food items that we ingest in, and it causes a inflammatory cascade which is happening. A lot of interleukins, the Th2s, and all the Th23 and IL-23, they are all raised. They are interplaying with each other,
So basically, a
and
Th2 response happening, and cytokines like interleukin 4, interleukin 13, 31, tumor necrosis factor all being released, and a very important, cytokine and the enzyme elevation of phosphodiesterase 4. This is a recent, addition to the pathogenetic mechanism. Dr. Mukesh, you want to throw some light on phosphodiesterase 4 enzyme?
Yeah, so that's the the point of discussion today. That moving from IL-4 to IL-13, 31, we have things molecules coming up in that direction also. Phosphodiesterase 4 is a enzyme which is so much responsible for the ongoing inflammation. Now, if we are able to inhibit that, then we can block a cascade, and that leads to resolution of atopic lesions. So that is why this new molecule which has come up, that is crisaborole, locally used as a 2% ointment, is very promising in the management, because unlike topical steroids, unlike topical calcineurin inhibitors, this is not immunosuppressant. It doesn't get absorbed systemically to the significant have any kind of significant effect. So having this particular molecule as a safer option and an effective option to manage atopic dermatitis, it's a wonderful thing actually.
I think before we go to crisaborole, Rishi, we should also dwell upon the fact about the concerns about our available topicals. What are the problems with topical corticosteroids or calcineurin inhibitors for that matter?
as we all know that topical steroids, if used for a long enough time, and if it is something like a halobutazole or clobetasol, is going to cause its usual set of problems. After like 2 or 3 weeks, the local immune response is uh, lowered. The telangiectasia can come, the atrophy can come, hypopigmentation, depigmentation can occur, and usually the wrinkling of the skin can happen, and the underlying organelles of the skin, they slowly die out and the skin becomes papery thin. We all know about this, and with the topical calcineurin inhibitors, we have to remember that our patients are the youngsters usually, and if given for a long period of time, we fail to see that there is a black box warning with all these, no matter how safe they say these things are, but they cannot be given indefinitely. So there was a need, for better things. I personally am a moisturizer person. There is something wrong with the transepidermal water loss here, and we have to get that barrier repaired. Of course, many creams.
There's an ibis flying out there. Can you focus on that?
Can you focus on this bird?
There was an ibis
Yeah.
going out.
So what does a moisturizer do is, we have the sandwich model of the skin, and it allows the newer ones, especially containing the ceramides, it allows, and I use a lot of dab technique. Sometimes I give my patients, immediately after they take a bath, no rubbing of the skin with the towel, not even dabbing. Normally dabbing is allowed. I tell the mother, to put a lot of moisturizer on the skin and make the child sit down, either in a shower coat or a big pool towel, and sit for about 15 minutes. and then wear their clothes and then apply all the other medications.
I think that's a very good point that you have.
Going beyond, you can do even wet wraps also.
Yeah. This is
Even
more
the
or less
most
the
severe
wet.
kind of atopic dermatitis patients can be managed without the steroids, just with the wet wraps, without the steroids, and they do wonders. So,
But even with moisturizers, we have a problem in a country like India. Look at how humid it is, you know. A lot of water and oil kind of a moisturizers.
Yes.
The thick moisturizers can cause superficial folliculitis and irritation on their own in a weather like this. So though they might sound right for the Northern American continent or the continental Europe, but in Indian conditions, even this has a slight amount of limitation.
I think that brings up the point of having tailored moisturizers for different situations. Like we may need one in North India, one in South India, one in
Yes.
a humid condition, one in a dry condition.
I almost forgot. While we are surrounded by heaven all around, we almost forgot. We went straight from moisturizers to steroids. The application, we forgot about the systemics.
Oh,
And both of you are experts at giving systemics. Dr. Anil and Dr. Girdhar, one after the other. Can you very briefly tell us about what are the systemics that you use in your practice, and what are the pitfalls and what are the joys of using them?
right. So, besides using antihistamines,
Which kind of antihistamine do you use?
I normally would use non-sedating, but atopic is a situation where you can use a sedating antihistamine also for a few days till the child gets better.
Right. Which one?
I use hydroxyzine for that.
Hydroxyzine, right.
Right. So among the systemic agents, most of the times we need the systemic agents for the severe disease. Now, when you have severe disease, you want to normally avoid systemic corticosteroids. You may use systemic corticosteroids as a short course, but otherwise you want to use drugs like cyclosporin. Now, cyclosporin is a wonder drug for rescuing your child of a serious disease.
Is it safe in children?
Yes.
How?
Cyclosporin is even safer in children as compared to adults because the children excrete it fast. And
Probably the gut is smaller.
yeah, gut is smaller, so that
Yeah.
ensures that it's expelled out fast. Children tolerate it very well. Children respond also very well, and the response comes within a week's time. And normally, I would use it for 4 to 6 weeks time, but sometimes I have to use it for more than 3 months also. I normally will never use it for more than 6 months in one go. My starting dose is 3 milligram per kg, but as the child gets better, depending upon the speed of resolution and the kind of control I have, I will taper it off to 2 milligrams.
What are your
then 1
concerns? Why
milligram.
do you want to stop it if it is such a wonder molecule?
See, the problem is cyclosporin is an immunosuppressive agent. We all know that.
Right.
And before giving cyclosporin, we have to do the workup. We have to, do the kidney profile. We have to do the infection workup, including the CBC, ESR. You have to do a urine examination. You do a MON2 test, and sometimes we do a quantiferon also. But in children, I think MON2 is enough. And in the follow-up, we have to keep checking creatinine. We have to do CBC at least once after 2 weeks.
So all these, medicines, all these medicines are like every rose has a thorn. They are good. They're good.
Nothing is safest actually.
About the long-term use of immunosuppressants and for that matter cyclosporin is the probability of developing malignancies.
Do you use corticosteroids?
Yeah, very often. You see, when you have
Which kind? Short acting, medium acting, long acting?
Generally short acting, because we give them for a short period of time to tide over a crisis, and in fact steroids are the first drugs that we go to when we need systemics. Only if the patient is becoming steroid dependent have we to go to some steroid sparing agent, and as Dr. Mukesh said, cyclosporin is one of the best drugs that we go to. But we have others also. Now we have tofacitinib. Some of my patients who needed cyclosporin for a long time, so we could not give it for obvious reasons that we were talking about.
What about biologics? Such a big group, we are not talking about it.
Biologics have not been very extensively explored in atopic dermatitis. We tried out omalizumab to some extent. I didn't find it useful, but now literature says that dupilumab is coming up as a good anti-IgE agent.
In fact, the most severe of the cases who do not respond to even cyclosporine, they are seen to respond beautifully to dupilumab. We see many patients whose body remains pigmented despite all the treatment. Even the pigmentation also gets better with dupilumab. Suddenly, I am reminded even methotrexate is used. In those people who can't afford anything and you don't want to give steroids, you use methotrexate in those patients.
Yes, but it has a long acting time. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks to
That's right.
start
That's
acting.
perfect. For
I
that,
think
we
And
need to give
for,
steroids
for the
actually.
short period we have cyclosporin amongst the steroid sparing immunosuppressants and the steroids. I don't think anything works as fast.
any other things, which are given are usually for theoretical purposes. I personally do not try to make my patients into lab rats. That brings me to the crisaborole. And crisaborole is a new drug which came out in 2016, sold by Pfizer Inc. in the US. And it does block the phosphodiesterase 4B, and that stops the inflammatory cascade from happening. The all the ILs, whatever happens in psoriasis, more or less, it happens here also. So it was also brought out for psoriasis. So what is your view? Does it fill a unmet need, for atopic dermatitis? Because we discussed, all and sundry here, and we still feel that there is, at the back of our head, we still scratch that there is still something left. Do you think this is a welcome molecule,
See,
or
chronic diseases are always, their therapy is always lacking. You see, because all the molecules that we use, be they topical, be they systemic, have their shortcomings. They can't be used for a long time. This is a lifelong disease. So we always are. There's always a quest to develop newer, molecules, and this would be a welcome molecule because I know phosphodiesterase inhibitor, apremilast, that I've been using for a few years now in psoriasis. Although there were concerns about its short-term side effects like loose motions and headaches, etc.
suicidal tendency? Nothing
Yeah, yeah.
happened.
But I am quite happy with that molecule, and I'm using it very extensively in my psoriasis patients, very judiciously though, building it up. So I feel that this molecule should also be promising. It has not come to our country. It will be a welcome addition to our armamentarium against atopic dermatitis.
See, you mentioned about apremilast. There is a subset of patients of atopic dermatitis also who do respond to apremilast. Uh, Now, we were talking about the topical agents. Let's say what the problem with us is. We have topical steroids. We know long-term use of topical steroids can cause skin atrophy, telangiectasia, so thinning of the skin, as you mentioned. The systemic side effects can occur if you are using higher potency steroids topically. Now, the problem here in our country is that all the topical steroids you can buy from the chemist shop just like that. Patient consults you today, comes back after 1 year, topically used a strong steroid for long-term topical side effects. Even the Cushing-White features we have seen with the topical steroids. So that's a problem. So you can't give a strong topical steroid to a patient. You start with the moderate potency. You have to counsel the patient, re-counsel on every visit, and it is a tedious job. Then comes the next thing, that is the topical calcineurin inhibitors. Now, calcineurin inhibitors, the problem is they cause a lot of irritation.
And do they work as well as they
They
promise?
don't.
Yeah, they don't work as much, and their action also starts late, and then they cause definite irritation. A lot of times the patients can't tolerate it. We say there will be burning or feeling of heat for some
Stinging
time. I
sensation.
see patients who come who have burning going on for 2 days after single application of tacrolimus. So there are problems with the topical calcineurin inhibitors also, and besides, we need molecules which are safer.
I think atopic dermatitis remains an enigma. The more we read about it, the more we know about it. The last word has not been written on this, and we should have, time tested, very, very accurate medications. And I think crisaborole would be filling this unmet need. And in a country which is, rife with the corticosteroid poisoning, I call it, and all the rebound phenomena, all the stria and hypertrichosis caused, I think this would be a drug. And apart from stinging, burning, or any kind of slight amount of, allergy to these substances, very few patients since last 6 years have been found to have any kind of a serious side effect against this medicine.
There have
So
been robust studies on crisaborole. There are at least 2 studies which have demonstrated very clearly that it does help a majority of patients. with atopic dermatitis whenever it is used.
And I think one big advantage is that it has been proven to be safe in young children.
And
Anything
and the
beyond
other thing is,
health
after we use the senior drugs, you know, the cyclosporin and steroid, there has to be something which can be used for maintenance therapy
for a long
Yes.
for a
period.
long period of time.
Yes.
I think crisaborole, along with the this thing,
Emollients.
moisturizers and emollients would go a long way in alleviating the distress caused by disease called atopic dermatitis. And with this, I think we all call
Yeah,
it
the final message
final
that
message
we are looking forward to this wonderful molecule called crisaborole,
to
which
come
is
to
coming
India.
as a 2% ointment. We really look forward, because there's always a dearth of molecules for this difficult disease called atopic dermatitis.
And with this, it was wonderful to have met you, Rishi and Anil, today
Same here.
for this session.
And
Thank you.
thank you, Oknet, for giving this, providing this logistics for this wonderful rodinar, as you have called it. Really nice.
Next time on a Harley Davidson.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.